Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This Shabbat is Shabbat Emor, and Emor means to speak to the people of Israel. I want to look at a certain aspect of the parasha today. One of the things that happen in this parasha is that we give the list of all the holidays, the ritual holidays of the year, starting with Passover. Passover became the first month of the year. When we talk about Rosh Hashanah is the head of the year in September or in the fall is really the end of the ritual year. But every head is a tail, is a beginning. But this is exactly what I'd like to talk about, this confusion that people may have. How come it's Rosh Hashanah in the fall, but then we begin to enumerate our holidays on Passover, which is the spring. So if you look at the calendar or the year as day and night, it'll be simple to understand. At night we sleep, so we don't do rituals. There are no rituals at night. So the day, if we divide the 4 seasons to day and night, it would be spring and summer are the holiday day, and fall and winter as night. So more light, less light, of course, but also the land sleeps in the winter. So it's more obvious in places like New York, where all the leaves fall and the trees look like they're dead. Of course, if they're evergreen, they would look more alive, but still everything is dormant. And then it starts coming back, and this is our season now. It's beautiful. Everything is coming back. So it really is waking up. So spring and summer are the day. So we have Passover that begins the first ritual that was given also to the Israelites in Egypt, and when they left, it became the first commandment was to follow the moon and to follow this month, the month that they left, Nisan, and it was called the first month. So the ritual year ends with Sukkot, with the holiday of booths. So this parasha really lists all the holidays. Passover, then we count the 49 days, the 7 weeks from Passover to Shavuot. When the rabbis tell us this is when we receive the Torah, and then we continue on and then finish with Sukkot. So I want to concentrate on 2 elements here. One, what is the difference between what the Torah tells us about the element of time and then a certain aspect of it, which is the 7 weeks that we count between Passover and Shavuot, which we're in it now, and we're approaching Lag BaOmer. Lag BaOmer means the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer, which are the 49 days. So the 33rd day is about 2/3 in, and we make some sort of a ritual that indicates that, and we'll focus on it in just a little bit. But to begin with, in the list of all the holidays, it tells us that God speaks to Moses and saying, "Speak to the Israelite people and say to them, these are my fixed times, the fixed time of God, that you shall proclaim as sacred occasions." So what it means is that God sets up the skeleton of the year. So there are fixed times. And the first thing that God fixes for us is Shabbat. On 6 days work may be done, But on the seventh day, there shall be a Sabbath of complete rest, a sacred occasion. You shall do not, you shall do no work. It shall be a Sabbath of God throughout your settlements. So the first foundation of all times, of all calendars, is the Sabbath, is Shabbat. Every 7 days, there's a Shabbat. Whether we observe it or not, it's up to us. But God made it holy. So it's separate, it's set, it's fixed. So then, which means that it's kind of separate from all the other holidays, because all the other holidays, God sanctified, but they could be more flexible in some ways, and the way they are more flexible is, for example, if a holiday sets on a certain day, it's not a Shabbat. It could be any day of the week. It could be Passover can fall on pretty much any day. Later on, the rabbis fixed the calendar in a way that certain holidays don't fall on certain days of the week. But that's really when we talk about more flexible, in Christianity, it's called movable feast. For example, the Christmas always falls on December 25th. So that's fixed. But Easter can fall on any day. It was later fixed to be on a Sunday, Easter Sunday, but it really could have fallen on pretty much any day, like Passover. So, and there are other feasts that are movable. So if you want to call it like the same way, it's a movable feast. It doesn't fall on the same day of the week. But Shabbat is fixed. It's always on Shabbat, on Saturday. So, okay, so we have the list of the holidays. I'm not gonna go through all of them, but it begins in the first month on the 14th day of the month. 14th day of the month, of course, is always the full moon. At twilight, there should be a Passover offering to God. And we start our holidays in the evening before the day. Why? Because creation said there was a night and there was day, there was evening and there was day, or evening and morning, and it was one day. So the day for us begins in the evening at night with sundown. So then it says on the 15th day of the month, which is the holiday of Passover, God's feast of unleavened bread, you shall eat unleavened bread for 7 days. And then the seventh day also shall be offering by fire to God. So we have the first day of Passover and the seventh day of Passover. Some people confuse it by saying that it's second Passover. It's not second Passover. And of course, in the diaspora, when we celebrate holidays for 2 days because of historical issues that were to send the message after the seeing the new moon. That's not the second Passover either. It's the second night of Galuyot, of diaspora, but it's not the second Passover. In fact, and this is what I want to talk about today, there is a second Passover. And guess what? Today is second Passover. It started last night, and it is second Passover is 30 days after the first holiday of Passover. What was that for? God allows people who were on the way or impure for no fault of their own to have a second chance of Passover. Now, we don't have that in any other holiday. This second chance of doing another Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah. You missed it. As we say, avar zmano batel korbano. If the time passes, the offering is gone. You can't really offer it again. Similarly, today we can't pray the evening service in the morning or the morning service in the evening. There are set times for it: morning, noon, and evening. And if you missed it, it's like missing the offering in the temple, and you just don't get the credit for it. So you didn't do anything wrong, or you didn't violate any a commandment, a restrictive commandment, but you didn't get the credit of praying on at the time. So this is a very interesting thing. Why then we get a second chance for Passover? So rabbis teach us that Passover is so fundamental in Judaism and for our calendar. It's the beginning of the calendar, but not just the beginning of the calendar. It began the calendar because of its importance, because it symbolizes the birth, the beginning. So, for example, people who for some reason couldn't celebrate their birthday, right? So are they going to not celebrate at all, or are they going to say, you know what, I'm going to celebrate, I'm going to have the party a month from now? I know people who celebrate their birthday midway too, all kinds of rituals. But if because a birthday is such an important event in a person's life, then you can maybe do it a month later. Um, I know that of course, the White House Correspondents' dinner is going to be moved about 30 days from now too. I guess because it's such a fundamental event for the American democracy. It really is the First Amendment. So because it's the First Amendment, we don't want to neglect it. So it was disrupted one way or another, and now we have a second chance to do it again. So this is what second Passover is. Second Passover is always around, and this is the next thing I want to focus on, is Lag BaOmer. So the second Passover and Lag BaOmer that are almost next to each other, they symbolize the two ways for us to look at the calendar. In ancient times, when they found the scrolls of Qumran, the Dead Sea Scrolls that dated at least 100, 200 years BCE, they found that they had a set calendar, a fixed calendar, that all the holidays actually fell on the same day of the week. All holidays, all months were 28 days, and they caught up with the solar calendar. So it was really a solar calendar that was somewhere in between the solar and the lunar, but it was led by really the solar calendar that was more accurate. So and that was a big debate between the rabbis at the time, because the temple people wanted to set their own calendar, and those who retreated from the temple because of issues of control and everything else, they wanted to have that fixed calendar. And actually, one of the signs that they that they or the evidence that they looked at in the Torah was that that Yom Kippur was always on a Friday. And they said that because in the Torah it says Shabbat Shabbaton, it's a double Shabbat. Yom Kippur is a double Shabbat. So therefore, if it falls on a Friday, it makes it a double Shabbat. So, but what the conversation here is really about where is the calendar fixed and where is it up to us to create new holidays. So, of course, what I started in saying that really the ritual calendar is from Passover to Sukkot is true with the sacrificial holidays from the Torah. But later on, we added other holidays that are not sacrificial, which means that we don't bring offering in the temple. And in fact, they are a regular work day. You can go to work, you can go to the office, but we need to commemorate it because it became a holiday later on in the Bible, or that we added it. It's a rabbinic edition. So one, of course, is Hanukkah. We know in the winter we have the holiday of Hanukkah that the temple was rededicated after the war of the Maccabean against the Greeks. So that became a day to commemorate. The other one is Purim. Purim was added later on. The story of the book of Esther, that the people of Israel were saved from an annihilation, and we commemorate that day. They're both days of miraculous redemption, and we want to acknowledge that. We also have, of course, commemoration days that were added later. The Holocaust Memorial. We have later on also, or before that, fast days that for Asara Ogei Malchut or Tisha B'Av that commemorates the destruction of the temple. So these are fast days. So we've added to those, but they're not from the Torah. They're not the assigned fixed times that God tells us these are the holidays. So what is it about Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day, that became one of those added holidays? In some communities, Jewish community, this is a huge celebration. And for the Hasidut, the Hasidim, it's a very it's called a Hilulah. We all call it Hilulah, but they make it a very big holiday. They go to Har Meron, the mountain of Meron, in Israel, in the Galilee, and they light bonfires, and we all do that. But they gather en masse in one place, and they celebrate all night. So what is that holiday that will be on Monday night? It's coming up. What is this about? So a couple of things, and it's really a very interesting and an important concept to understand. So there are two ways to look at Lag BaOmer. Some look at it as the birth or the day that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rashbi, died. And Rashbi is the author of the Zohar, the main work of Kabbalah. So it's very esoteric, of course, and Hasidut bases itself on Kabbalah, on Jewish mysticism. It really is the backbone to their faith. Of course, it comes from the Torah, but they live in the esoteric realm, saying essentially that life, our physical life, is not everything, and the spirit of things is sometimes more important than the letter of the law. There's the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, and the spirit can have that effect of the fire, the flame in our lives. So you can have the body, but if the body is cold, it's dead. And if you need the soul, the fire, the flame. And another time we spoke about what Hasidut is and what's behind it. But those people who didn't really have time to sit and learn all day and to be very meticulous in their observance, they augmented their faith with the spirit and the meaning behind things. So Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism is really at the core of Hasidut. So it really became a Hasidic event. The other reason that we commemorate it is that the Talmud tells us that on the 33rd day, it was during the time of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was the rabbi who really wrote, or the oral tradition, the Mishnah that we know today, the teachings that are the oral tradition, the oral Torah that was later on written and expanded. He was the one who really expanded everything. The Mishnah itself was compiled by Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, the Rabbi Judah the Prince, who compiled all the oral Torah that was known at the time into one work, and he wrote it down. It was supposed to be oral, but they were afraid that it will be forgotten with all the restrictions, the Roman restrictions on Jewish practices. So he compiled it, and later on, Rabbi Akiva expanded on it. So really the oral tradition and the basis for the Talmud today all came from the teaching of Rabbi Akiva. So he is a cornerstone in Jewish learning from the beginning. Rabbi Akiva had, according to the Talmud, 24,000 students. He was himself, he grew up very ignorant. He was a shepherd, very, very poor. And he fell in love with the daughter of the wealthiest person in Jerusalem, who rejected him. She didn't. She fell in love with him too, but the father rejected the relationship, and he told her that if she marries him, he will ban her from the estate, from the inheritance, and that's really what happened. And Rabbi Akiva was 40 years old, and the only condition that she posed to him was that she wanted him to go and learn Torah, to be educated. So at 40, he started the alphabet. He didn't know the Aleph Bet. He didn't know how to read. He was a poor shepherd. So at 40, he started, and he became this giant of Jewish scholarship, of course. So first of all, just by that, we know that the Torah or the Talmud tells us, the rabbis, that it's never too late. And there's always a second chance in life. So for 40 years, he didn't have the chance to learn, but at 40, he got the chance and he took it. And the story is that he was away for 12 years, and then he came back, and he didn't even see his wife because he didn't want to disrupt it, and he went back to learn for another 24 to 12 years. And when he came back after 24 years, he had 24,000 students that all surrounded him, and she hardly recognized him, and he hardly recognized her. But the story is a beautiful story of dedication. She was dedicated to Rabbi Akiva to wait for him all this time until he learned Torah. He was dedicated to learning Torah and bringing it to the people. So in its core, they were publics, the not the first public servants, the Abram and I and Sarah, of course, were, but they brought it back to the people. So Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 students, and they were all brilliant and smart and knew the Torah and everything. But they lacked one thing that was the most important. They were not mensch. They were not respectful toward each other. And of course, the rabbis teach us, and the Torah shows us again and again, that the essence of the Torah is to be kind, is to help the poor, to help the needy. If you have no respect that way, it means that something in your Torah lacks, that you're not doing it correctly. And it said that they all, within the 33 days between Passover and the 33rd day of counting the Omer, they all died. 24,000 students. It said that they died of a plague. Some say that they died in the Bar Kokhba rebellion, the big rebellion against the Romans. But nonetheless, they died, which means that God was not on their side, did not protect them. So, and the Talmud says that because they were disrespectful toward each other, they didn't have that humility in them. So on Lag BaOmer, on the 33rd day, they stopped dying. So it became, of course, a big celebration. But then the deeper idea here is not just that they stopped dying. That was one big thing, of course. But one chapter that ends always begins a new chapter. Whether you like it or not, it begins a new chapter. So the question is, what do you do after a fall like this, or after a devastation, after a trauma like this? And last Shabbat, we talked about how God started creating the world out of a trauma, when everything was topsy-turvy, everything was a chaos, tohu vavohu. So the idea that we learn immediately in the beginning of the Torah is that you start again, you create again. And our rabbis teach us that 7 times a righteous person falls and rises. It's in the Bible too, and which means that a righteous person knows that everything is from God and that nothing is the end. I heard another expression, a beautiful expression. We should not put a comma where God puts we should not put a period where God puts a comma. So we have a chapter, but that's not the whole story. The story continues to unfold until God decides that it ends. So it's so similar to the game of musical chairs that we have to keep going until the music ends. So what Rabbi Akiva decided to do, and this is where also the power here is to start again. To start again, he had 24,000 students. Now he's starting again, and he's starting again with 5 students. But these were, of course, giants, and one of them was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rashbi, that later on wrote the Zohar, the text, the fundamental text of the Kabbalah. So Rabbi Akiva, there's a beautiful story about Rabbi Akiva that a midrash that maybe can explain where his power comes from or his strength to continue. And this is very, very important and basic midrash that explains the different reactions to different traumas or different events that happened in the world. So the midrash tells us that 4 men walked into an orchard. Now, in Hebrew, an orchard, pardes, later on was an acronym of pshat, remez, drash, and sod. These are the 4 levels of exegesis or learning the Torah. You have the first level, the pshat, the simple understanding of a text, but then you have the deeper levels until you get to the secret level, the esoteric level that was only passed from father to son orally. So Kabbalah, the word Kabbalah really means the chain of receiving. It became synonymous with the secret level because all the rest of the levels were already they were already known. But really, all the levels, all Torah is transmitted that way as Kabbalah. Today, we just refer to Kabbalah as the secret level. So the 4 of them walked into this orchard, and of course the orchard is a kind of maybe a primordial orchard, something that is beyond our reality, some heavenly state that they walked into. They maybe were high in some ways, maybe not on drugs, but on learning Torah and praying. So they walked into that orchard, and it said that only one came whole out of that orchard. One lost his life, one lost his faith, one lost his mind, and one came out intact. And that was Rabbi Akiva. So the 4 that walked in, and each person lost his one faculty. So one, of course, lost his life because what he saw was so overwhelming that his soul just left him. The second one, his mind left him. Like he couldn't also hold on to this, to wrap his mind literally around what he saw, and we'll talk about what they saw. And the third one lost his faith because, again, his faith couldn't accept something that he couldn't hold on to. The reason Rabbi Akiva left intact was because he wasn't trying to hold on to anything. And that's the basis for our faith and the relationship with God. If you're trying to hold on to anything, you try to decide the future, then you can react to the future any way you want. But don't make what you see a fixed picture. God tells us this is the third commandment of the 10 commandments. One is you should not have, I'm your God, you should not have any God, and then don't make molten images. Molten images are not necessarily means that it's just statues. Don't make a statue in your mind, your soul, in what you see in any of your senses, because anything could be deceiving. What they saw was what the Midrash tells us, that they saw marble, but it looked like water. And they couldn't harmonize the two. That they're looking at marble, but it was water, but actually they thought it was water, but it was actually marble. I have to say, for many years, I really didn't understand this until I visited Rome for the first time. And I walked into one of the churches, and I looked at this marble column, with beautiful marble column, and then I approached it closer, and actually it was painting. It was wood. It was a wooden column that was painted on to look like marble. They definitely fooled me. So, and even if we look at some of the artists like Bernini in his work in St. Peter's in Rome, it's amazing what he did from marble. The wind goes through it. It looks like you're looking at something that is blowing in the wind now. So when those four people walked into the orchard, they had a perception in their mind, and they couldn't let go of their perception. Rabbi Akiva was the only one who walked in without preconceived notions. He walked in knowing that he doesn't know. He walked in knowing that God is in charge. And whatever God decides, he's going to go with it. Go with the flow, so to speak. Now, I'm going to parenthetically say that we have to be careful this way too. We can't just go with the flow and think that we have to discern in life what comes from God, what comes from the Torah, and what does not. So we have to be very careful, and that's why we learn Torah all our lives, to be able to discern that. But when we live life, we shouldn't be expecting anything. And even if we expect something to happen, if it doesn't, don't be traumatized. Don't be totally surprised, because we have to live in this notion that the only permanent element that we have in life, only constant, is God. Everything else, it cannot be eternal, constant, infinite, and so forth. And Rabbi Akiva was the only one that understood that. So going now back to the story of the 24,000 students that died, we understand now why Rabbi Akiva was able to even wake up in the morning after his 24,000 students died. He gets up and he says, it's a new beginning. I'm going to start anew with 5 students. And that's what he did. And Lag BaOmer also is the watershed moment in this story that tells us, just like he himself received a second chance, learning Torah only starting at 40, he understands that God is in charge. If God decided that this chapter ended and in the way that it ended, still does not preclude us from starting anew. And then he wakes up in the morning and he begins a new chapter, not just in his own life, but in the life of the Jewish people. And look at what happened at the second chance. He became the Rabbi Akiva that we know today, that expounded on the Mishnah, that explained it, that brought ideas out of it that we still uphold and embody. So the conclusion of all this is when we count the Omer, we count the from 40 to 49 days, or the 49 steps from coming in from darkness, from Passover into Shavuot, which is the light, of course, receiving the Torah on Mount Sinai. That's the ultimate light, is to pause and to not just be in the process and just count it mechanically, but really understand that we're going into an orchard, that it's the realm of God, that we can't really control, not our mind, not our soul, not our senses can control what will happen and what God will bring. God is infinite. We cannot contain God in our infinite or finite vessel. And exactly because of that, the term Shvirat HaKelim, there's a terminology that says the breaking of the vessels is when we try to contain God in ourselves instead of be open to God's infinite, to infinity to go through us like an empty shofar. Once we try to contain, then the vessel breaks and we end up like either the person who lost their life, lost their mind, or lost their faith. So Lag BaOmer teaches us to be like Rabbi Akiva, to be open, to walk into life, into the orchard of God, and not assume that because we see and we think it's marble, or we see that we think it's water, when in fact it's marble. So we can hit our head and injure ourselves. So that's really the conclusion, is let's live in a way that will be able to be a container of light, of infinity. And when we are in the teaching of the tabernacle, reestablishing the house of God, or building the tent of meeting, everything there has to do with light. Even the Aron, the Ark of the Covenant, the root of the word Aron is Or, container of light. So we need to be that container of light, which means not to be holding on to anything physical as a fixed anything. All we can do, and just bringing it back to the holidays and the fixed time in our calendar. That's pretty much what gives us that structure, is the fixed time that God makes holy and that we dedicate. But other than that, there's nothing physical that we can hold on to this life and be walking with the infinite and with God. Shabbat Shalom.